Doctor Octopus, the metal-limbed master planner. Once upon a time, Otto was one of the country's top men in the field of radiation, a genius physicist. He would use mechanical tentacles to keep a safe distance from the radioactive material he used in his experiments. A master of his craft, Otto's main problem was vanity. He believed himself to be so above his peers, so superior to everyone, that he was often excluded. But Otto chalked this up to jealousy on their part, and was content with smugly living life alone. Until an explosion fused the mechanical tentacles to his spine. Blasted by the radiation, the Doctor's mind was scrambled into megalomania. Otto Octavius was now Doctor Octopus, and he quickly became one of the Earth's deadliest villains, almost destroying it several times over, and even once took over the life of his greatest enemy, Spider-Man, for over a year. Nowadays though, mainline Otto doesn't seem to know what to do with himself. Sometimes he's a villain, sometimes he's a hero, sometimes he's something in between. But we're not here to talk about mainline Otto today. We're here to study the multiverse, to find separate variants of the master planner. This is Doctor Octopus, across the Spider-Verse. Double the limbs, double the doctors. The cyberpunk setting of Marvel 2099 actually has two separate people taking on the legacy of Otto Octavius. One of them is a more traditional science squid, a villain from the video game Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, an absolute banger of a video game. And this one, and I know I've just called the lady one a science squid, but this fella takes it a bit too far. This one's from the 2099 reboot of Yesteryear, and he's a bit more creative in the reimagining. But let's start with the hot one. Ladies first, after all. Serena Patel is the true name of our new Doctor Octopus. She's the current director of Alchemax's Shadow Division, a secret sector of the world's corporate masters that deal in the really dark stuff. Gene splicing, human testing, artificial life. Anything morally dubious as one of her metallic tentacles wrapped around it, such as the creation and unleashing of the psychic monster Hobgoblin 2099, born to do Alchemax's bidding. With 8 deadly neon tentacles to watch her back, Serena's schemes come to the attention of Spider-Man 2099 when her division began to go after fragments of the Tablet of Order and Chaos, a mystical artifact whose pieces had been scattered to the multiverse. Spider-Man 2099, enlisted by Madam Web of Earth 616 to hunt the powerful fragments down before they can damage space-time, learns of Patel through the freakish Scorpion, who was hijacking a piece of the tablet for her so she would help return him to human form. And when Spidey storms the Shadow Division, he comes face to face with the deadly Doc. Showing her genius, she's created a machine to harness the fragment's mystical power, but the engine's activation would obliterate Nueva York, so Miguel has no choice but to stop her. And the banter, mate. Miguel winds her up so easily. These two have got great chemistry.
Welcome to the Shadow Division, Spider-Man. Tomorrow's weapons developed today. And at the heart of it all, my masterpiece. Impressive, isn't it? What do you mean, meh?
I've seen one of these before.
No, you haven't.
I have. I totally have.
It's a condensed matter reactor, the only one in existence.
Is that what it is? Oh.
Congratulations. You've shut down a number of redundant energy batteries. A minor inconvenience. As long as I have the artifact, my reactor is unstoppable, and the destruction I wreak with it will be a testament to its magnificent design.
Really? Doesn't seem like much of a machine if it gets all its power from a magic rock.
You creep. Do you have even the slightest idea what complicated engineering is required for it to successfully derive energy from a mystical artifact? Do you? Do you? I'll kill you!
Gotcha. You're right. I am incredible.
I've got no clue why they never brought her into the comics. She's a fine octopus antagonist for Miguel, especially now the idea of Lady Octopus has taken off. But I suppose it can't really happen in the comics now, because Miguel already has a Doctor Octopus, one more closely tied to the actual world of 2099. One of the main threats in 2099 for mankind was the Atlanteans, the people of the ocean struck at the surface with their sea monsters, seeking revenge for sins from long ago. One of these ocean-born outlaws was Doctor Octopus. With no real name given, that's all we can call him. This Oct-2099 was a key member of the Sinister Six, a group of futuristic villains who took over Alchemax in an alternate 2099. And when Spider-Man 2099 is flung into their dark future, he gets ambushed by the Six and is set to be killed. Until Goblin, the leader of the Six, slyly has him freed. Discovering Goblin's betrayal, the Six take her hostage and fall under the leadership of Doctor Octopus. And the villains let Miguel know that if he doesn't return to them, they'll kill Goblin in his place. When Spider-Man 2099 and some allies face the Six, Miguel manages to free Goblin and escapes back to the past to ensure this dark future never happens. But Doctor Octopus makes good on his word and kills the Goblin right in front of Miguel before he can erase this dark timeline. The Doc slithers back to his bleak future, leaving Spider-Man in shock. There's honestly not a lot to this fella, but that's mostly because he doesn't really appear after this. He was kinda cool and ties into the 2099 lore well, but aside from killing Goblin, he doesn't do a lot but make threats, which is something Spider-Man himself points out to him. I do think I prefer the game's Doc Ock over the Atlantean. I just don't think this fishy foe lives up to the standard that Doctor Octopus should be. And from the far future, we travel to the past, as up next we've got a darker iteration of Otto, Doctor Octopus Noir. Dr. Otto Octavius is one of the main villains of Spider-Man Noir, Eyes Without a Face, the second adventure of a more hard-boiled wall crawler. In this reality, Octavius was born disabled and needs a wheelchair for day-to-day life, but that hasn't stopped him from ascending to the top of the field of biology. Aided by the opposable arms attached to his chair, Otto has all the capabilities of his peers, and more. Grim as his methods may be, Otto seeks to understand the human brain so that one day disabilities like his own will be a thing of the past. A noble goal, but Dr. Octavius has learned all he can from monkey brain, and he's ready to begin his terrifying tests on human subjects. Otto has allied himself with the Friends of New Germany, Nazi sympathisers who supply him with a stream of Africans to experiment on to his heart's desire. Growing up in Africa himself, Otto developed bitter racism because his house servants and father's workers were free to live as they wanted while he was trapped in his chair. Allied with Nazi Germany, his true experiments are to find a way to control the human brain, supplying Hitler with the perfect workforce once the world is ruled by the Nazis. And to this end, Otto has partnered up with the Crime Master, the new Don of New York now that Osborn's out of the picture, and his heavy-handed henchman, the Sandman, hoping to give Germany a foothold in New York. Spider-Man tears the operation up when Otto lobotomizes Robbie Robertson for knowing too much. Livid at Spider-Man's interference and at the loss of his hard work due to Crime Master's bungling of the operation, Otto murders his partner in crime and tries to go quietly with Spidey to the police. But Peter is still furious at what Otto's done to Robbie. Ready to kill Octavius, Peter only relents when Captain Jean the Wolf talks him down, and Otto is deported to Germany. Where, in a cruel twist of fate, Otto is denied a chance to join the Nazis due to his disability. Ubermensch only for Nazi Germany. Anything else is to be destroyed. Holy hell, that was dark. But I suppose I should have expected it, the word noir is in the title. Another Nazi for Spider-Man Noir to fight. That makes 2 so far. But Otto was just a wannabe, while Shocker was actually getting paid by them. So who's the master planner now? This Doc Ock is well different from the rest. He's doing like brain stuff, and he's a biologist instead of a nuclear physicist. So his methods are more visceral. That monkey panel was gross. Here it is again. Enjoy. This one was a true mad scientist. And them arms were creepy as hell. I think it's because they're like needles instead of like clamps. His surgical tools attached to the end of his limbs are very creepy in like a Freddy Krueger way. Imagine your dentist cracking them out. No thanks. I do like how they made Otto kind of young and handsome. Like he's got the looks and the smart. It's literally only his disability holding him back. And the final part where after all he's done, the Nazis spit on him and turn him away was great. Good comeuppance for such a vile villain. For our final foray into the tentacled terror that is Doctor Octopus, we're gonna go from the weakest incarnation of Otto to one of the most powerful. And I'm not just saying he's powerful because he's shredded. It's time for Ultimate Doctor Octopus. In the universe designated 1610, the Green Goblin might have been Spider-Man's greatest enemy, but Doctor Octopus was the villain that messed with Peter's life the most. And he was there from the very beginning, because as soon as Peter got bitten by that genetically altered spider, Otto and Norman Osborn were already plotting against him. Otto worked at Oscorp, and because it was their experimental super soldier serum, Oz, that gave Peter his powers, they stalked and studied the boy, eventually discovering the powers the spider had imparted. Now knowing what his Oz compound was capable of, Norman Osborn tried to power himself up using the same formula and principles, but it turned him into a giant green goblin and blew up the facility. Otto got caught in this explosion at Oscorp, and it fused the scientific tentacle tools he so often used to his spine. Now, Otto's arms here aren't simply metal appendages, they're like a fluid metal, and they can morph into all kinds of weapons. One moment the claws, the next the spikes, and the next they're a flamethrower. After being comatose for weeks, Otto finally reawakens to find he's now a freak, and he believes the explosion was no accident. He thinks it was an assassination attempt by a business rival of Osborn's, Justin Hammer. And he thinks this because Otto's been a double agent all along. As Human Hammer tried to have him killed to keep him quiet, Doctor Octopus sets out for revenge on the businessman. A crusade that pits him against Spider-Man, and even though Hammer does die, Spidey defeats the multi-armed madman and S.H.I.E.L.D. takes him away. But once his head finally begins to clear, Otto recalls the name of the boy with the spider powers. And this wasn't the end of Otto's criminal career. Throughout his life, the Mad Doc continues to terrorise the world. Alongside his old boss Osborn and a whole syndicate of meta-human criminals, the Ultimate Six blackmail Spider-Man into helping them attack the White House to discredit Nick Fury. It takes the Ultimates to stop the Six's scheme, and when all the criminals are back in custody, S.H.I.E.L.D. finally finds a way to remove Otto from his tentacles, but even that isn't enough. When he discovers his ex-wife has sold his likeness to the upcoming Spider-Man movie, Otto furiously summons his mechanical accomplices and attacks the set. During this fight, Otto actually manages to defeat Spider-Man and kidnaps him to Brazil, but the moment Peter gets the upper hand, Doc Ock once again goes down. After this, Nick Fury himself melts the arms in magma, ensuring the threat of Doctor Octopus is over for good. Or it would have been, but the threat was never really Otto's arms, it's his brain, which he shows in the greatest plot Ultimate Doctor Octopus ever hatched, the Clone Saga. Fearing the raw power Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. held over the world with their Ultimates initiative, the FBI hires Otto to create super soldiers that wouldn't be under Fury's control. This leads Otto to spearhead a project that creates clones from Peter Parker's DNA, potentially giving the government an army of Spider-Men. But due to Octopus's genetic tampering, the surviving specimens all have some augmentation or change from the base DNA. We've got Jessica, a female variant of Peter. We've got Kane, the mentally unwell, imperfect copy. Tarantula, more spider than man. The Scorpion, with a mechanical tail grafted to his spine. And Richard, an aged-up Peter clone, brainwashed to believe he's the original Richard Parker. When the Doc reveals his involvement, S.H.I.E.L.D. can't touch him thanks to his FBI credentials. But the surviving spiders, Peter and Jessica, sure can. Only Otto's got a trick up one of his many sleeves. He has the power to control metal. The Oz explosion had altered his DNA to give him mild telekinetic control over any metal nearby, and he uses this power to forge brand new arms to fight the spiders. Only once again, he is defeated. The next time we see Otto, he's still seemingly out of reach of the law, as he's the head of the Roxxon Brain Trust, and here is where things get tricky. An attack on Roxxon by a mysterious enemy almost kills Doctor Octopus, before Spider-Man and Spider-Woman save him, and Otto genuinely seems grateful. This incident puts Peter in Doctor Octopus's good graces, and ultimately, this glimmer of good is what gets Otto killed. Norman Osborn once again forms a Sinister Six, but this time their sole purpose is to kill Peter Parker. Otto refuses. He tells the Goblin that Peter Parker is their masterpiece, their greatest creation. They can't kill him. But Osborn doesn't like being refused. He attacks Otto and brutally beats him to death, before he and his criminal cronies go off to do the same to Spider-Man. Ultimate's always going to have advantage through its sheer number of stories and its popularity, but my main thought on Ultimate Otto is that he tries too hard. The original Doctor Octopus is a huge threat with just as clampy tentacles. Ultimate Otto's like a kid designed him. He's buff, he's scary, and his tentacles can do whatever the plot wants him to do. The flamethrower thing's going a bit far, I think. But he's clearly inspired by the Raimi Spider-Man 2. Look at this cover. That's not a bad thing, that. That film is the best. No superhero film has ever topped that train fight. But like I said, the real threat of Otto is the brain. He tricks S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to reuniting him with his arms in Ultimate 6. Then he frees the rest of the gang. He almost escaped S.H.I.E.L.D. with Peter as a hostage. And the twist that he's the cause of the Ultimate Clone Saga was great. Not just because the Jackal's lame, but because he did it all just to ruin Peter's life. The secret power thing was interesting as well. His cobbled together arms were sick, but I'm gutted he killed Tarantula because his design was badass. Otto's final moments being in defense of Spider-Man does redeem the character though. It's nice when villains get development. But don't tell anyone. But here's a plot hole. The Oz formula is meant to make you immortal because both Norman and Peter come back from the dead because of it. But both Otto Octavius and Harry Osborn never came back. But don't get me started on Ultimate Universe loose threads. I'll start rambling on about Ultimate Scorpion again. What can I say that hasn't been said a million times before? Doc Ock is one of the all-time greatest villains easily. A genius mind with the metal muscle to match. I can't think of a character that wouldn't have trouble taking on the Master Planner. I see him as kinda like the leader of Spider-Man villains. Whenever there's a team up, Otto's the man in charge ever since the first anti-Spider-Man syndicate in the first annual. And if the other villains know what's good for them, they pay him the proper respect. He's so versatile, he can go from robbing banks to fund his schemes to stealing nuclear bombs to holding the Earth hostage with a solar cannon, and it's all in character. He's great in comics, movies, cartoons, games. For such a goofy silhouette, he can be quite scary, yet most of the time we feel sorry for him. He's got such a simple power, but it's used so creatively. Boiled down, he's just a man with more arms. But the ways he's used are so inventive, it ascends the simplicity. I feel like every second video I make, I mention Doc Ock. but he's that iconic of a bad guy that it's justified. Who's your favourite version of Doctor Octopus? I think I'd still say the mainline universe has the best one, but they've got decades of stories to build them up, so it's not really fair. Let me know yours.